Welcome, GPP Master members. Week 8, halfway point of the NFL season already. Real quick, as we always do, let's recap Week 7. So, Week 7 was not the strongest week for this video. As you guys know, we've had some killer weeks, and it only takes one big win. I will say that I did have Josh McCown in this video last week, along with Shady McCoy, Todd Gurley, Jarvis Landry, so some good players. And at the end of the 1 o'clock games, around right near the end of the Jets Dolphins game, I was in 7th place in Millionaire Maker with that McCown lineup. See if I can show that to you guys here, because it's a moment that was heading towards one of those sweats. I'm seeing if I can pull it up. I should have already pulled it up, so bear with me. There we go, 7th place, Millionaire Maker, on my way, and ended up, 700th. So was right in the hunt. Hopefully we'll have a good week this week, better than last week. So on the Week 8, midpoint and 6 bye weeks, we are focused on the DraftKings Millionaire Maker, or if you don't have the budget to play $400 or $500 in Millionaire Maker, then the $3 big $100,000 to first place tournament with 20 to 30 entries under $100 budget. So starting with quarterbacks, this is a very, very tricky week at quarterback. Some weeks are easier than others. We nailed Carson Wentz a couple weeks ago, but the quarterback is always the base to build on, the base to build a stack on. This is a week where I'm going to be playing upwards of 10 quarterbacks again and diversifying, just how we do it. Some weeks we love 2 or 3 or 4, and we play them heavy. This week is going to be very spread out. With that said, let's focus on the top 5. So, number 1, I'm going to just really quickly address 3 quarterbacks that are expensive. Tom Brady, I think, is obviously a guy I'm going to have exposure to. He's the number 1 costing quarterback on DraftKings. He's playing a game where he should put up a lot of points. I don't really know who to stack him with. You just kind of random, right? It could be Cooks, could be Gronk, could be Hogan. So I may play him naked. But he's expensive, and I have a weird feeling that the Patriots are going to run the ball this week more than one believes or thinks. San Diego very weak against the run. Carson Wentz will be the absolute shock. He has been unbelievable. I've had him a couple times, the 4-touchdown week. My concern about Wentz this week is they could absolutely be in a blowout situation against San Francisco. And if they are, it could become the LeGarrette Blount second half, which we'll come back to at running backs. And that could hurt fantasy value. I just feel like this game has that kind of potential. So, again, I'll have exposure to Wentz, but he's expensive, and I won't have a ton. And Matt Ryan, same thing. He's due for a big week, but he really looks out of sync. He looked awful. I was at the Patriots game. So those 3 guys are going to be kind of expensive end. I think there's some pivots from that, and that's what we're going to talk about. But I will have at least all 3 of them in one lineup. Andy Dalton, 5,700th on DraftKings. 30th pass ranked defense in the NFL. The Colts. That's who he's playing. This game probably stays closer than people think. And it's at Cincinnati, and A.J. Green, look, he's just bound to have a big game here. I think there's other factors in Cincinnati, but I will be having the A.J. Green Dalton stack. At 5,700, it opens up a lot of options for you salary-wise. So going to have some exposure to Andy Dalton. Kirk Cousins, $6,400, despite how well he's playing, in a massively important game for that organization at home. Dallas's 20th pass defense, total of 24 in that game. So a lot of points expected to be scored for the Redskins. 24 points, that's 3 touchdowns plus. So we're going to be having a lot of focus on Kirk Cousins in that game. I do not think he will be highly owned. I'm going to have a little bit of exposure to Cam Newton, because which Cam are you going to get? The Cam that looked like he was headed to the Super Bowl when he played in Foxborough and beat the Patriots, or the Cam who went into Chicago and laid a complete egg? But I think at $6,600 between his running and the opponent, that you're going to have an interesting opportunity there and a sleeper pick with a good total, 21.3 points expected in that game for Cam. Drew Brees. Drew Brees is playing at home, which he tends to do better at, although this year that's been a little more even. He will not be highly owned, and you rarely see Drew Brees at $7,000 with a total that's way up there, 28 for the Saints, high up on the on this week. So I think Brees is going to come out firing this week, and again, good play. I don't think the Bears go in. I just think it's a different outcome. I don't think the Bears go in there and do what they did at home to Carolina. I will say this: the Bears are going to try to run the ball to keep the ball out of the Saints' possession, and that's the only thing that worries me is if the Bears are successful running the ball, there's not a lot of pace of play, and the game goes slower, and Brees doesn't get enough shots. But I like Brees in this game. And then look, Deshaun Watson's playing at Seattle. He's $6,400. The guy has been an absolute monster 3 weeks in a row before his bye week. You still have people who don't believe, and you're going to have that double whammy here that he's going into the 12th man into Seattle, into the 12th man into Seattle against that defense. So there will be very low ownership on him. And I'm not saying I'd put all my money on him or go crazy, but you got to have one lineup with him while he is playing the way he's playing because he's been out of control. So moving on, again, those 5 quarterbacks with a little bit of exposure to the top guys. Moving on the running back. So I'm all in on Devonta Freeman this weekend at $7,200. Tevin Coleman missed practice Wednesday. He had a limited practice Thursday. He is banged up. So where normally Freeman gets 60% to 70% of the touches and Coleman 30 to 40, I think that gets skewed. So somewhere like 80 to 100 this week. They're playing the Jets. The way to beat the Jets is on the ground. 23rd against the run, 22nd against the running backs out of the backfield catching passes. Devonta Freeman is as much of a stud as Le'Veon Bell, Elliott. He's right up there with that group. He will be lower owned because of the struggles Atlanta's having. Okay, you'll see more people on Zeke, more people on Howard, more people on Bell. Secondly, I do like Jordan Howard in some lineups, $6,800 because bottom line, like we said, the Saints struggle 29th against the run, and the only shot Chicago has, I repeat, the only shot they have is a successful game from Jordan Howard. Period. So he's going to get the touches, 20 plus, and he's a stud. So you always want a little bit of that in your lineups. 20 touches, focus of the game plan. Saints defense has been very hot or cold, as we know. So still an unknown there. Coming back to Andy Dalton, this may be the week you see Mixon break out. He's only $4,700. He's starting to look good, and the Colts are 32nd against running backs coming out of the backfield catching the ball. 32nd. So that also gives you a chance to look at a little bit of Gio Bernard at $3,900. He's had some big games already, but I like Mixon in this game. I think he's worth a flyer. You can pivot off to Gio, though. And then Christian McCaffrey. Look, Christian McCaffrey has been a disaster running the ball. We just talked about Carolina, but he has basically been a receiver coming out of the backfield. The most targeted player on Carolina most of the last 4 weeks. He is relatively price good. I think a Cam stack with him is a great play this week. I keep going back to the well on McCaffrey, and I think this is the week you actually get the reward. Going on to, lastly, LeGarrette Blount. So if you believe the Eagles are going to blow out, you could play the Eagles defense in this game against Beathard, who looked awful. Turnover waiting to happen in that Eagles game. Could be 2 defensive touchdowns, but you could actually match him up with LeGarrette Blount, who, if they have a big lead, it may turn into just the LeGarrette Blount downhill show in the second half. Straight downhill every time he touches the ball. Could easily pick up 80, 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. So a good stack with the Eagles defense if you want to kind of deviate a little bit there at running back. Wide receivers. So, again, I'm jumping back to Cam, who I said I'd go with McCaffrey. I do think you can also stack Cam with Benjamin at 6,400 in another lineup. AJ Green, 8,600, number 1 most expensive receiver on the docket this week for DraftKings, but there's a reason for it. Tough to fade AJ Green this week. If you're going to go with Dalton, you can stack AJ Green, and you can fit in plenty of other strong players. You could have AJ Green, Dalton, Devonta Freeman, and you can actually even get McCaffrey and maybe even Julio Jones in there. So, going to have an AJ Green, Dalton stack. I think as far as Kirk Cousins, so now you got Terrell Pryor kind of relegated to 3rd. Josh Doxson's now number 1. Crowder's the PPR guy. Chris Thompson's the explosive guy out of the backfield. But Jordan Reed is healthy. Jordan Reed is back. Jordan Reed is playing Dallas, who is, ready for this? 32 teams in the NFL, 32nd against the tight end. Or 31st or 32nd. So I am all over the Cousins Reed stack this week. May do one with Cousins and Thompson, but Cousins Reed, Cousins Reed. I think with Carson Wentz, if you do play him, you'll see a lot of people stacking him with Ertz. I still think that's going to be tough to get value paying up that much for Ertz, as good as he is from a daily fantasy standpoint. So I'm going to deviate from that and stack Wentz with Aguilar, which I've been doing successfully. I'm going to stack Wentz with Torrey Smith in a revenge game against San Francisco because it's a one big play kind of thing. And I think this is the week Alshon Jeffrey actually shows up as the number one receiver for the Eagles. So 3 stacks there for Wentz, or maybe double stack once and use him in 2 lineups because, again, as I said, that's a blowout risk in that game. I think with Saints, this is the week Michael Thomas, who's had a very tough season. Don't overthink it. Brees, Thomas, unless Thomas is hurt. He was limited Wednesday. He practiced Thursday. If he's hurt, then you can absolutely go Ted Ginn, who has been really good. And I would go a Brees Thomas and a Brees Ginn stack anyway. But if Thomas was out, you could actually experiment with Brandon Coleman as well. But for me, it's Thomas and Ginn or just Ginn if he's out. As far as Deshaun Watson, I love Will Fuller. Again, Seattle is going to have DeAndre Hopkins in their radar, and that's where Richard Sherman will be. So if you have Dick Sherman on him, that opens up some opportunity deep or in the slot for Fuller. He's been an animal since he's been back. He's only $5,300. They're not good against the wide receiver 2, Seattle. They are not good against the wide receiver 2. And I see nothing slowing down Watson. So sneaky stack there. And then I think, look, Julio's good for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns this weekend for Atlanta. If Atlanta can get it together, it's going to be the Julio show. So I like those receivers pretty much across the board this week. And I, again, coming back to that, really like Will Fuller in any and all lineups specifically. Jumping onto tight ends. I already said Jordan Reed in a stack with Cousins. Love it. Absolutely love it. And I see here 31st against tight ends. O.J. Howard, $2,900, 2 mega touchdowns for Tampa last week. We know Jameis likes his tight ends. I'm going back the other way to Cameron Brate this week, who's priced this a little bit down against, I think everyone's going to have eyes on O.J. Howard now, and Cameron Brate is still a 15 to 20 point a week DraftKings guy when he's on. In that same Redskins game stack potentially, I like Jason Witten at 4,200. The Redskins have really struggled against tight ends, and Jason Witten's silently having a really good season here in daily fantasy. And then I think Severian Jenkins, although he's expensive at 4,900, he'll come off a little bit this week and have a chance to be lower owned. If you want to save money, I don't want to see you do this with AJ Green too, but Tyler Kroft, again, another guy who's just been putting up the numbers 4 weeks in a row for Cincinnati, and I expect him to have another touchdown this week. And he's like 3,000 on DraftKings. I just want to see you use him when you're not using AJ Green. Defense. So normally, as you know, I like to look for cheap defenses. Didn't have the Bears last week. Eagles are the number 1 most expensive defense. They'll be the chalk. But I just don't know how you can't have some exposure to them, if not heavy exposure, against the San Francisco 0-7 team with a rookie quarterback who looks like he has no idea what he's doing. Sometimes you just got to play the chalk, and I think the Eagles are a defense you have to play this week. If you want to move away from that, I think the Bengals against the Colts, but I still think that game can stay close and Jacoby Brissett can do well, so I'm not as crazy about that one. I think you can roll the dice. No one's going to have the Patriots. They're $2,400. They're at home. Phillip Rivers could light it up, but he could also throw 2 picks. And the Patriots defense is playing better. It's a cheap way out to try to score some points. And then the Saints against Chicago and the rookie quarterback there at home, $3,400. The Saints have put up double digits 3 of the last 4 weeks quietly. And as I said, it's either going to be Jordan Howard beating them or staying in that game, or that game is going to get ugly. And if it gets ugly and the Bears are playing from behind, the Saints are going to have a defensive touchdown. So that's where we're at this week. Good luck. We'll see you back. We'll send any updates over during the weekend.